This is the Topsoil Podcast. I'm Trent Stout with Stout Seed.
And I'm Mitchell Hoare with Continuum Ag.
Okay, so welcome back to the Topsoil Podcast. It's been a while since we've talked with you guys lately. And I know both of us have been extremely busy, so today we want to kind of catch you up on what's been going on with our lives since the last time that we released an episode. So for me personally, we've gone through a pretty dramatic growing season just in the way that we started. I think one of our last episodes that we released, we were just like talking about corn emergence and maybe some yellowing of corn and early seedling diseases, cover crops and how those interact with early growth stages of corn. And then it seemed like overnight that corn went from V2, V3 to like V9, V10. It was just crazy explosion of that corn. As a matter of fact, we actually talked about how we were getting a lot of phone calls on the yellowing of corn before, it kind of switches over to taking its nutrients up from its primary root systems versus the seed. And then it was like, all these calls about yellow corn, and then all of a sudden overnight that corn was, chest high. It was just insane how fast the corn crop exploded around here. Soybeans followed suit pretty nice. And I know, Mitchell, you're going to talk a little bit about some of the evaluations that you've been doing in the field. Primarily for me right now, we're looking at a lot of disease pressure. We've had pretty heavy dews in the mornings. We've had pretty good conditions and environments for that piece of the disease triangle to, especially for gray leaf spot, particularly in southeast Iowa, seems to be kind of the main culprit. There is obviously presence of northern corn leaf blight, common rust. You can pretty much find these in pretty common. There's some gosses around. I haven't personally found any gosses yet, but that's something that can be real concerning for guys. We haven't had a big outbreak of gosses since probably 2009, 2011 around here. So there's a lot of fungicide being flown on. That's a pretty typical question that we're getting dealt with right now. And, fungicide can be a tricky issue for guys that are soil health conscious. And, just going back to the basis of this program, one of the key components that we want to bring awareness to is soil health and biology and how that interacts with cash crops in our neck of the woods. But more than that, even on a global level, as you're going to be sharing with us some stuff that, from South Africa and stuff that you're going to be doing. So, but anyway, so been dealing with fungicide. We're still trying to get this, through the growing season here. On top of that, even since the last time that we talked, I had a kid. So there's been a lot going on in our lives, that have kind of maybe put the podcast on maybe the back seat, but we're excited about, revamping the show back up. And we have some really exciting news and interesting stuff that's going to be coming down that pipeline in the future. So, stay tuned for that. But,
maybe we don't disclose all of it yet, but some exciting things happening for the Topsoil Nation. Soil Nation. So, yeah.
But so first thing, kind of topic that we want to talk today about is really cover crop versus no cover crop. And one of the big questions I've had is with disease. I'm sorry, I'm getting another call here. But with disease pathogens, are we seeing any kind of differences between where we had cover crops, where we didn't have cover crops, and can we break that disease cycles in our area with the presence of cover crop before corn or before soybeans? And so far from just my anecdotal stuff, really it's non-conclusive. There's really no way for me to say with definitive, that with cover crops that's a less presence of disease, you know what I mean, or vice versa. Yeah. Maybe early on we can make some connections, but with leaf diseases later in the season, I'm not thinking that it's made any difference at all. Now, I'm curious to see what to hear what you've seen, Mitch.
Yeah, so maybe I lead into this question with a little bit on kind of what I've been working on here the last couple of months too. We do a lot of test plots, some products from all over the world, but a lot of just farmer management, side-by-side kind of trials too, cover crops being our main one that we focus on. I've even got some of those test plots where we're pulling soil samples weekly, doing a lot of tissue samples as well, analyzing the cover crop residue. We did tissue samples as a cover crop, biomass samples, weighing out the cover crop as it decomposed, bunch of stuff. So trying to get all that kind of relayed together, and we're definitely seeing improvements, which has been really cool. You're kind of alluding to that. Right now, on one of my trials, it's a third-year cover crop, just cereal rye, cover versus no cover. We're seeing 16% improvement in biological activity in just 3 years. And we see improvements right away too. In year one, we see improvements, but now we're seeing consistently improved biological activity, which is awesome.
Now, are you talking strictly like from CO2 respiration levels?
CO2 respiration. Yep. So I send my soil sample. A lot of these soil samples I send directly to Dr. Rick Haney, using his Haney test with the man. The legend is what one of his nicknames. And so working directly with him on this, he uses an infrared gas analyzer to look at the CO2. So it's an incubation test. Essentially, they take the soil, dry it down, re-wet it, and allow it to sit and work and incubate for 24 hours. Then with the infrared gas tool, they can assess the CO2. More CO2 means more biological activity in the soil. And, yeah, with cover crops, we're seeing improvements. We're also looking at differences from different various products as well. Just trying to figure out, how do we keep the microbes in our soil happy and working for us? Part of the aim there, to lead back into this question, is how do we get more good guys working in our soil to get rid of the bad guys in our soil? So there's microbes that will eat pathogens. And if you have more beneficial microbes, they overtake the pathogen microbes. We're doing a lot of work with Chase Genomics. It's a DNA fingerprinting lab that we can identify those individual species of microbes, which is super cool. We did multiple thousand acres here this year, and we're going to do even more this fall, which is awesome. So we're looking at the actual pathogens in the soil. We're looking at actual numbers and species that we have in our soil, which is really cool. So now once we understand more of what is the problem, okay, we're seeing a ton of gray leaf spot. We're seeing a lot of blights and whatnot as well. I think part of that here this year is that we have been growing so fast that and the soil conditions have been excellent that a lot of the residue that we had on the surface, we're breaking that stuff down. We've had enough rain, so a lot of those diseases get up on the plants because rainwater splashes the spores back up onto the plants, and we've had plenty of rain this year to be able to do that. I mean, that makes a ton of sense. For the cover crop suppression question, we didn't have massive cover crop to help suppress. Most of our cover crop was 10, 12 inches tall. We planted green, all of it. So all on our operation, we planted every corn and soybean plant was planted into green standing cover crop. Not all of it was rye, but all of it was planted green. Disease isn't too terrible on our stuff. Just about all the corn's got fungicide, and that's definitely helped a lot. But I think in the disease suppression question with the cover crops, I don't think we had quite enough growth this year to see the difference. What I'm interested in is in doing all of our soil testing and tissue sampling is to look at the micronutrients, to look at complex nutrient balances. And if we can improve plant health and plant vigor so the plant on its own can fend off disease, I think we really make things interesting as far as being able to improve soil health, to improve plant health. Then we don't have to spend as much money on inputs and putting on fungicide. I mean, for us, there's plenty of guys that put on with airplane or with a helicopter, and that works great, but it's expensive. And some of us put it on with a Haggy or another sprayer that allows us to spray right over the corn, but we're losing some stand there as well because it's pretty well inevitable that we're going to knock some over, and that ends up being even more costly. So if we can get the soil to function the way that it's supposed to be and help improve plant health, we make things real interesting, and that's what we're going for. So
some guys, when we spent some time at the soil health conference that Ray Archuleta put on in Wellman, Iowa, up at Steve Berger's, some guys would make the comment, and I think those guys did, that applying fungicides to your soils is actually working somewhat against you if you're trying to create that environment that you're talking about, where you're creating a healthy soil to be able to prevent, healthy soils create healthier plants. And so, what's your thoughts? You guys are pretty soil health conscious.
To me, it's all about some give and take here. We know that we want to improve soil health. We know we want to try to do things better. We want to improve profitability. We want to keep pushing yield. But how do we have a little give and take to get there? So, okay, like for example, we still use a lot of anhydrous. So, okay, we put on the anhydrous because the economics work extremely well. We utilize that as our strip till system, and we plant right back on top of that strip into our cover crop. So that works extremely well. We still have that kind of a tilled strip to be able to plant into, and the economics work great. But anhydrous is one of the worst things that we can do for soil health, and we can see that. we see that our soil health is not where we want it to be. So we're trying to figure out, okay, can we put a different product in with that anhydrous to reduce some of the negative impact? And I've seen that we can. Now, not great. We're still putting on anhydrous. It's still not good. Because you got to think, the soil microbes are made out of the same components that we are. Anhydrous is really nasty to human skin because it interacts with the water in your cells. It does the same thing to a microbe. It's basically frying them. And so we don't want to do that. But for right now, that's how the economics work until we can get away from it. So same thing for fungicide. It pays more times than not for our operation. We've done the trials and whatnot to be able to see that. But we would love to be able to get away from it. If we can improve our soils, then I think we can. I think we can get away from it. So
it's a give and take.
It's going to be a give and take for a while, yeah. So we know where we want to get, though, and at least if we have the right direction and we got the right tools now to be able to monitor, now we can manage. So we can measure it. Now we can manage it.
So going back to when you were talking about these populations of microbes, and even with your DNA testing and trying to figure out, good microbes versus, maybe irrelevant microbes or, so forth and so on. Have you been working? I just see this, maybe because I do sales, I see this as being an angle for some of these companies. And I know that there's a ton of companies selling biologicals now. But you're working with some of these biologicals, and I know that there's, some molasses type products or just different sugar-based products that have come to the market. How are you, or maybe you can't make any conclusions at this time or just some generalizations, but are you seeing some of these being effective?
Yeah. So that's exactly what we're trying to go for here is we need to be able to better assess the soil. So what we're doing now is we're combining a basic soil test to look at pH and organic matter and cation base percentages and whatnot, cation exchange, combining that with the Haney test to look at available nutrients, micronutrients, various forms of nitrogen and phosphorus, organic carbon, and then looking at the soil DNA as well to get an extremely thorough look at our soil biology. And the test that we're using actually allows us to look at the soil's ability to cycle nutrients, which is literally the definition of being sustainable. Mm-hmm. If the soil has the ability to cycle NPK and carbon, that's awesome. That's being sustainable right there. So what we're doing then is utilizing those soil tools as a benchmark to be able to go off of and be able to improve those soil parameters with better management practices and better products. So, yeah, we're testing all these products from all over the world. Most of them right here in southeast Iowa is where we're testing them out and monitoring how they are impacting our soil. So when I look at a product, especially like a biological, like I said, there's plenty of good ones out there, but there's so many that most of them are viewed by a farmer as foo-foo juice right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that, because for the longest time, that's what most of them have been. You know, there's plenty of them that are foo-foo juice, or at least maybe for our soils, they don't work as well as they do in an Arizona soil. And that's no big deal. But the companies need to know that too. They need to know where to best deploy their salespeople and where their products can have the most bang for their buck. So we're looking at products and saying, okay, we need to look at efficacy. So we need to make sure that the product works and that we are improving on-farm profitability. But we also want to look at soil health and impact on soil health. That way we're getting long-term benefits as well. And I think improving our biological community is an extremely interesting and very forward-thinking part of that, where we're looking at how do I get the good guys in my soil built up, overtake the bad guys in my soil, and get rid of issues is really what it's all about. Now we're just expanding our toolbox to be able to do that. It's extremely interesting on where this could go. The cool piece of what we want to do, and not in today's episode, but in the future, and we've talked about it a lot before, is we need to continue to scale going direct to market or direct to consumer marketing. And some of these tools and being more sustainable, having less diseases in our soil and in our plants is a great tool to be able to market based on and be able to show, hey, here's my product that I'm producing more sustainably because my soil is recycling nutrients. My soil doesn't have pathogens and whatnot that affect me. Therefore, I don't have to use some of my pesticides, and that helps the farmers improve our on-farm economics. And if we can feed into a consumer system because of that, that's huge. So there's some interesting things there, and we'll see where this goes in the future. But
for sure,
some interesting tools there, and some big time people that are in this space and trying to make all those things happen. I just think that we have the right tools to be able to provide the metadata into these markets that are developing. So,
absolutely. Well, I think it's been great, getting this revamped back up. We're just super excited to put on an episode, getting it out again.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
look
maybe
forward
what's
to
a couple of your kind of things. I mean, maybe a quick little preview on what's going on. We want to get back in the swing of this. I think we've got the right tools to be able to do that and the right motivation to be able to do that. What's kind of your, I don't know, for the audience, what's kind of your quick takeaway on where do you see this going now? What's your vision?
Well, okay, so we obviously are amidst over the past month, of busyness in life. We've also have some other things developing with the podcast that we'll be, kind of relaying to the audience as those things develop further down the road here. But, the most important thing is, I think that we're going to try really to make that concerted effort to get content out, on a bi-weekly kind of, or not bi-weekly, twice a week. And I think that that's kind of where we're headed, is just kind of, still pounding the issues of soil health, still bringing awareness there. But most importantly, just giving people real life observations, the different point of view of what we're seeing here in our small niche of the world. And then you with what you're doing, even worldwide, just helping, trying to bring that bigger reach, and promote this to a larger audience. So that's really kind of how I see us moving forward.
I am right there with you, and trying to just help bring in the right connections. I think our networks are big. Yeah, I'm going to South Africa next week, so I mean, people all over the world. Just trying to bring the right resources to farmers. We've got to improve. We've got to do things better. The regulations are definitely coming. with water quality. It's a scary thing, but some of the events I've been at here recently, I've gone from there could be stuff come to there's going to have to be major changes because improvements are not being made in water quality the way that the nutrient reduction strategies aim to. So I think it's fairly inevitable that there's going to be some types of regulations come. We just want to make sure, I want to make sure that our listeners are prepared for that. And,
but we've been talking about this for a long time.
Oh, it's been a couple of years in the works, easily.
Is that we neither needed to make this change or we were going to get mandated this change. I mean, we've been talking about this with guys for 5 years. Yeah. And it was kind of the writing on the wall, and you could see it coming. So this probably shouldn't come as any shock to anybody. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I mean, change is really...
guys got to be working on it if they're not right now.
Well, change is hard. Change is a hard thing, and especially in the agriculture community. But, at the same time, we'll see whether this is, for the better, I guess. I mean, I personally, on my own personal stance, I think this is something that really, from a global perspective, can be a really positive change for the agriculture community. But it's going to be a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty painful for a lot of guys here to begin with. But we'll keep watching that. I think we got the right connections there, too, to keep us in the loop on what's going to happen, and we'll keep passing along that info, too, as we learn things. So
absolutely.
Lots to look forward to. I'm excited.
Yeah, great to be back. Thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to releasing another episode soon. So stay tuned.